So the modern mystic has a certain way of trying to convey the notion that there is no I, there's no ego, there's no me inside this brain somewhere that controls the body or can manipulate the world or know the world objectively. And to do that, he likes to talk about theories like Douglas Hofstadter's, which is basically it views the brain through the metaphor of a computer system, and that the matter itself, the brain matter, is the hardware, and the cultural imprinting is the software. And it's a fine metaphor for talking about the situation, especially when the ultimate goal is to show people that, look, you're not this essential self inside here somewhere. And as the goal of his metaphor, I agree completely, and I think this video that I posted was an attempt to use that metaphor because it seems to be that that metaphor will be effective to people who view the brain in that way. If they're very scientific or materialist types of thinkers, then they probably respond better to the type of video where I gave Leary's idea than they would to something like embodiment, which I actually like a lot better as far as a metaphor, because you're right. Um, Kyle Ben, I guess, um, that slicing the world up into this duality is troublesome, and it definitely, I don't know if it crippled philosophy, because as Whitehead said, Western philosophy is basically the footnotes to Plato. So the last 2,500 years almost of thought have been a result of Plato's original formulations. So I don't know if he crippled philosophy. He certainly kept it focused on this certain framework of looking at the world as a dualism between mind and body. Maybe it wasn't as inherent in Plato's ideas as it was drawn out later on, but it was certainly in germ in Plato, I think. The idea that there is a difference between illusion and reality. That right there evolves after 2,500 years into subject versus object, or my own feeling of what I'd like the world to be that's inside here, and the actual objective world as it exists on its own out there without feelings or values or anything like that. That whole breakdown to me is troublesome, so I agree with what you've said. I didn't really post Leary's idea as any kind of final say or solution to this mind body problem. Um, the embodiment stuff basically says that to think of the brain as the real center of all of this cognitive activity is just as silly as to say that there's a mind in here responsible for everything that goes on. That there's an I or an ego that thinks, that has thoughts, instead of there just being thoughts alone. So to point out the brain and try to put the brain in a vat and say that's what you are, and it's just this matter that creates consciousness somehow, I don't believe that, because yeah, you're right, there's this huge gap between the matter and the consciousness. I think the White Kindi mentioned that, and that's definitely an issue for that type of materialist reduction to the brain, because I think the brain is situated in a body, and without the body there, the brain doesn't do anything, and it's in the context of the body, and then the body and the brain in the context of the world. All of these together, this perceptual process, which Kyle Ben brought up also, that's where reality comes into formation, is in this exchange or transaction, which is a word that John Dewey used to describe this transaction between subject and object that produces our experience. That there's never a subject that has an objective experience. There is a process of ongoing interaction and transaction between my body and the world, and we can't locate the objectivity anywhere. I mean, so this isn't saying that everything is subjective. It's not saying that everything is objective. It's just saying that it's a lot more interwoven and entangled than that, and reality isn't something we could ever hold in our hand and say this is what it is. So hopefully that clears some stuff up. I wasn't really taking Leary's side or anything like that. I was just using that idea to try to communicate to people who are more materialistic, more objectivist, more positivist, more scientifically oriented, to try to talking them into this idea that they don't have the kind of self that they may think that they do.